Welcome everyone to the John Gardina classroom. I have an opportunity to have a very close and dear friend of mine who I call brother. His name is Scott Craft. He reigns from that state up north. Being from Ohio, we just don't like to say those words or letters. Starts with an M, ends with an N. I met Scott when we did the first round of 40 Days of Deliverance for him, which was January of this year, 2022. He came on and man, he did a great job. And one of the tragedies that happened during that was his brother passed away, Andy, right around the middle of, I think it was January 18th or 19th, right in there.
21st.
21st, okay. So after his brother passed away, Scott and I have had a very, very close bond together. Like I said, it's just been a bond of brotherhood. And I met him for the first time in February. He came to my house. We had dinner with some friends. And then I saw him again this past weekend as we marched down to the Mid-State Mile, even through that godforsaken state of Kentucky, which we'll talk about. So, Scott, why don't you just give a little introduction about yourself?
Oh, my name's Scott Craft. Yeah, I met John through the 40 Days program and many other fantastic people that are still in my life. I don't know. I got involved in the ultra running thing, I guess, through 3 of 7, Chad and Blake. And I watched the Mid-State Mile last year, well, the past 2 years. And when I found out, I asked John if he was going to run in it. Or I asked John if he was going to go, and he said, well, I'm running. And I said, I'm going. And he said, well, you want to crew me? And of course I said, yeah, that sounds great. Gives me something to do, makes me part of the race. And yeah.
So that's how it kind of came about. And man, what a blessing it was to have Scott. So this episode really is to talk about his side, the crew side. So not from the runner's perspective, really, but from Scott's side. So just want everyone to know, we marched down, like I said earlier, to Franklin, Tennessee. Scott slept over on Thursday night, and we headed out with my mom at 5:45 a.m. From Cleveland, Ohio. And it took us a while to get down there. That's, like I said, that state of Kentucky really has some issues with their traffic. So we actually we were sidewinded on 71. Where we had to go off the freeway for about almost an hour, but we made it. So once we got to the grounds, we met up with just phenomenal people that both Scott and I are friends with. Mike Bellini, Tim Douglas, Jeff Forrester, Aaron Dana, Ben Goins. They were all there when we first got down. So tell me, Scott, about what it was like when we got onto the grounds for you.
Well, the whole weekend was amazing, but I've known Jeff for online for over a year. Tim Douglas I've known for quite a while, but I've never met these people. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to meet them, it was kind of, you don't know what to expect, but then I realized very quickly that there's no these are the same people you've been talking to. And I think I told you that after we left there that night. I was like, it was kind of amazing, because usually you meet someone online, there's a lot of not truths you'll find out very quickly. Mm-hmm. But with Jeff and Mike, and like you said, all the guys, Aaron, all these guys that I've watched and listened to, and yeah, they were all super authentic, and it was just, it was just amazing.
Yeah, the phrase you said was, it will rain. It resonates with me forever. As you said, it's so nice to see the authenticity of their character from being online to in person. And it really was, and that was kind of the whole weekend for everyone that we knew from basically Instagram. I mean, we're probably most people that we know is from there. And just to see people, just like, I'm just kind of just double down on what you're saying, is just to meet people and be like, man, that dude or that girl is just like they are online. The message they have is the same, and it wasn't phony. So I think, and I'm going to get you into here now, is the people at the race. So if you want to, you can talk about either that night before the race, how you prepared for it, or you can jump right in, whatever you want, brother.
Well, I got lucky because I had, of course, Jeff, he crewed Aaron last year. And so he was telling me, the build up to it, he was like, it's going to be amazing because you get to see things that the runners, they're out there for 20, 18 minutes while you're sitting here, doing, watching everything. And that was nice because you got guys like Tim Douglas that, they know they've crewed too. And so it's just, and one of the best things about the weekend was maybe the night before, because just the fellowship because on race day, you guys are racing. So especially like Aaron, he has to be, he's in for a long haul, so he can't, so, but the day before it was like, somebody, a brother I hadn't met yet.
Yeah.
And it was just meeting Justin. That was because me and Justin, like on Instagram, we've talked back and forth a lot, and getting there and meeting him was amazing. I mean, we went to his tent, and he walks up, gives me a big hug, and it was just, that's him. And it was just authentic.
Yeah. So Scott's talking about Justin Hamilton, who won the race, 40 hours of running, unbelievable. And it was, after we met the crew by the side of the hill with the tents, Justin had his tent set up, man. He had the best tent, right? Yeah. And I forget who said, I think it was Tim, was like, hey, you want to go talk to Justin? We're like, yeah. He came over to us, gave us some hugs, and just a happy-go-lucky guy. And it was great to meet him really off the bat too, which was cool. Yeah. So let's walk into, so Friday night was the night before the race was different, only because we kind of expected just me, you, and my mom. We had a place at a cabin just about 10 minutes away, and we were blessed. We had Jeff Forrester stay over. So kind of, what did you feel? Did you feel special having him there with us that night? Go through that.
Yeah, like I said, he's like a brother to me. It's like, so when you said Jeff's coming over, and I was like, that's a great idea. I don't want him sleeping in a tent and having to run up a mountain. So yeah, I thought it was great. And Jeff's he always gives to, that's just him. He's just always, and he makes you feel, like, yeah, it was special. It was nice having Jeff around just to talk to, before we went to bed and stuff. It was a good time. It was
really nice just to sit at that table, and we were just scarfing some food down, chips and whatever else we could find, just get a little more carbs in before the race. And it felt like it was just like we've known each other for years. That's how I felt. And knowing Jeff too for a couple of years now, it was just nice to, as I say, break bread together and just kind of get, everyone has a little anxiety before a race, and just to calm our nerves. And I think I said our prayer before we went to bed, which was nice, from Psalms, and just to be together in fellowship. And that's the big thing that we're going to get into the next day, and continue this conversation, is the fellowship of the brotherhood, of just being so in tune and in part of the community. And that's the difference between like running a marathon or half marathon. It's isolation. Ultra marathon is a team. Now, I've never run a 50 or 100 miler, and I know you have stations and you have a crew that helps you out along the way, but this is so unique, the race, the Mid-State Mile, because you depend on your crew every time you come in. And it's like, Scott, I'm going to be honest, you were on point. Like, you knew exactly what I needed. You came in, every time I came in, you knocked it out of the park. So kind of talk about the race day and how you prepared for it, and how you operated so well.
Well, like I said, I knew that you were going to be out there. You had your hands full with that. They call it a hill, but it's a mountain.
Yeah. Yes.
So I just knew that, and we talked about it before, the things you wanted to eat, the things, salt, salt tablets, about how often you wanted them. And I know your body better than I do. So I was just, and your mom was there, and that she was a big help. I mean, she was constantly going out in the trail, telling me when you were coming to the loop. And I was like, okay. So I just made sure to keep and I talked to Blake before, a couple months ago. That's what he said. He was like, just make sure you don't you only got to work for 3 or 4 minutes. Don't be gone when he comes in, or be out doing something else. That's your job until he says, I'm done, or he finishes the race.
Yeah.
So I just tried to make sure I had the towel, because the heat out there, and it was cooler than it was the year before, I guess, but still it was hot.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I would advise anyone who runs the race. Have more ice than you think, have more water than you think, and have cooling towels, because I had to make an adaptation. So when Jeff finished his race, he had 2 extra towels, and we shared the same cooler. And it started to get hot. I think around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I started using those towels during the race. If you saw a picture of me, and I'll post one too that I have, is I had my hat on, my brand, and I had the towel literally like draped down my whole back over my neck. And that really helped, because the humidity out there, man, it was ridiculous. So making sure you're cooling your body down the entire race. And that was something I think we learned from Aaron Dana, who was in our tent, is he had this ice pack on the whole time. There was a couple of runners who had ice packs, but you got to know your body. But I tell you what, when you're overheating the body, and you can have a way to cool it during the process, I highly recommend that. I mean, the one thing that you did, Scott, and this goes exactly with that, is, so talk about the cooling of the process. When I would come in every time, what would you do? Because you had it down pat about the cooling process.
Yeah, I had a towel ready when you came in, so I would put it on your head,
Mhm.
and then you kind of just kick back and you tell me what you wanted to eat, or if you needed anything, if you thought you needed anything, whether it be salt tablet or however you were feeling.
Yeah.
So I was basically, I think most of the time you just wrapped, because it was getting warm, and
Yeah.
it's a grueling time out there, I'm sure. And you had the towel wrapped around your head, and you just tell me whatever you wanted to eat, Rice Krispie treat or the
Yeah. The honey.
finger thing. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
was just kind of opening and handing stuff to you and letting you eat. And then, of course, the whistles let you know when it's time to get up and go.
So the way, because again, this is my first time running the race. What Scott did allowed me to go so much further, and for many reasons. One, the cooling process. Two, making sure I had my salt tabs, because the longer you go into the race, like you not that you get delirious, or but your mind starts to shift from just survival. And for your crew, so Scott and my mom, and then Tim helped out, and Jeff helped out throughout the process as well. And the crew just are asking you simple questions. So Scott was the point man. Like, he was the guy who would ask me, what do I need? And I always made sure that he did this so well about the salt tabs, making sure I had one every other time I came in, which was crucial, because your body you lose so much salt or from your sweat when you're running. And just making sure we had a plan. The plan was, I know my body. So for anyone who's going to go out and run a race like this, you got to know what your body can actually digest physically, also liquid. And I knew that I don't like anything heavy. So that's why honey stingers and the Rice Krispie treats, they worked well for me. I had watermelon when I came into, there's a station, and my mom brought stuff as well. I remember during the race, she was like, do you want me to go get you a bagel? And I'm like, no, that's the last thing I want. A bagel and high humidity, I'll throw that thing up. And I couldn't even down it, because I know my body, right? No heavy substances. So the big thing for everyone is, you got to train how you're going to run that race. And that's the big part of training, not only is on your feet and hill repeats, but also the nutrition part of it. So I know that tailwind was money, because I knew that, this is a part, why don't you explain it, Scott, of the process of the tailwind and how important that was?
Yeah, I had to have it. You had a half gallon or.
Yeah,
And
half gallon.
yeah, and I had to mix it up you had to drink one of those every 3 hours, I believe.
Yeah,
And you
600 calories. Yep. Mm-hmm.
you were pretty much on point with that. I mean, I didn't have to just had to keep it mixed up and make sure it was there and cold. And yeah, just had to make sure you stay hydrated, because like I said, it was hot and there was a lot of up and down out there, and
Yeah.
kind of felt stagnant. It was it's a serious race. I mean, like, I don't know, the crews, they work. I mean, and a lot of the crews are family members, and they love, and they have a lot of love for the people that are out there. So it's like there's a lot of anxiety in there too. That's one of the things I realized, because sitting with Aaron's family, and it's like, you just see, that it's kind of hard for your family members too to go and watch this. I can see
Mm-hmm.
how some family members don't, they're like, I don't think I want to go watch that.
Yeah. And I remember, and I'm going to be honest, like the first 24 miles, I don't remember. I'm going to be honest. Like I was blessed with having a system that worked, from the crew to my pace, where I was coming in like 17 and a half minutes, like clockwork. And I literally, it's such a drill that the one thing I just knew I can control is my pace there, and then getting my hydration, my fuel, and cooling down. And then before you knew it, all you hear is these whistles: beep, beep, 2-minute warning, beep, long beep, 1 minute. And then like 30 seconds, it'd be like, hey, let's go get to the corral. I mean, get to the starting line, and you got to go again. And it happens so fast. That's the one thing that I think we all kind of learned is help coming in at the same time. I think helped for the system of you guys helping me get back up and go another mile. And what are your feelings on how fast that process went between when I came in and when I had to go back out?
Yeah, it's ridiculous how fast 3 minutes or whatever it is goes, because,
Mhm.
and like you said, on the way home, when I was watching the updates, and you hear the whistles, and it's like, wow, those things are, they're they haunt you,
Yeah.
because yeah, it's so fast.
Yeah, it really was. And I think longer you get into the race, like you're like, oh, seriously, that whistle, John, would you stop blowing that thing for give me another minute? But that's how the race is. It's just how it's set up. Though one thing then too, I'm just going through my brain of what I remember so vividly was that I remember my mom and you guys just telling me towards the middle, towards the end, is just, hey, I love you. It was really nice to hear that. And it was so, I think when you're out on the course, and I'm going to go into my kind of what I've to the middle towards the end now here is I really, you conserve. Some people could talk, like there was people on the course that could talk and do the hills. And that's not how I operated. Like you'd have small conversation, but I didn't really like to talk that much. I like to conserve my energy. So the thing is but as the race went on, and I read a post from Luke, who came in third place, he was second the year before, is that they kind of had a group that would just talk and laugh, and they would be together and help each other go longer. And I thought to myself, man, I maybe I should have done that at the end, because like when you get in that isolation period by yourself, you got a lot of bad thoughts that come in your head. Seriously, like you just like, hey, I'm by myself. I want to be doing this for hours by myself. And I think one thing that I would tell people in the future, and for your crew to tell you this too, is to say, hey, go around somebody that gives you positive vibes and try to stay with them. And Justin, I mean, I can't even explain how perfect this was, but Justin, who won it, Ultra Dad, man, every time I saw him on the course, he's like, "What's up, brother?" And you'd have a nice candid conversation. And I should have tried to hang with him towards when I started to fall off. I should have just gravitated towards him because of not only because of his longevity of the run, but his personality. So here's some sound advice: when you go longer into the race, try to find someone who you can stay with the pace with, because you need that positive energy. And that's one recommendation that I wish I would have done, because I know I would have went longer, because the devil comes in when you're in isolation. So if you're around a positive group of just energy, man, you'll go so much longer. So you need it during the race, and you need it when you come into your corral when you're getting worked on too. So what do you think about that, Scott?
Yeah, I think, yeah, and there was a lot of positive people out there too. It's like
Mhm.
Luke, he was just like they said, during the night, he kind of started telling jokes and whatever just to keep people. Because I'm sure, I mean, you can attest to that. I'm sure the night out there is a little bit different.
It
When
is.
you're on that mountain, it's got to be just the dark has to suck the life right out of you. I mean,
Mhm,
because it's a dangerous place. It seems like it at night. It would because it's so
mhm.
technical, especially coming down those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I learned. So for those of you who don't know, I mean, I ran 13 hours and 43 miles and I got to the intermission. So let's talk about intermission because that's one thing that yeah, that I know I could have done better. And now that I know. So when I trained, I never had an issue with my lungs. My cardio is always good. I do a heart rate training, film acetone. And my lungs were, I felt like so expanded from the effort I had to put in to get up that hill all the time that in the intermission, I laid down and it felt like I was suffocating. Like my chest was so tight. So the one thing I would recommend is have a chair that you could lay down and put your feet up instead of laying on the ground. Now, like Ultra Dad, he laid on the ground. He's fine. It's whatever works for you. But now that I learned what didn't work for me is that really kind of messed me up cardio wise. So go ahead, talk about intermission for a second, Scott, of what you saw and witnessed.
Intermission was probably the toughest time that I think we had as a crew because
Yeah,
you really don't know if you haven't, like you said, if you don't know, you really don't know. So
yeah,
it was like, okay, here's intermission. So you have 20 minutes to lay down and do whatever you want. Well, like you said, you have to find a place to lay down. And if you
hmm,
haven't been there before, like Aaron had a chair, like you said, that recline that he could cover up and, relax,
yeah,
kick his feet up. But we didn't have that. So you were on the ground with your feet in a chair, I think,
it was.
trying to get some sleep. But
Hmm.
yeah, and that intermission is built in for a reason.
Yeah,
Because
I
I think
know.
it lets your body think, hey, we might be done running. And then 20 minutes later, guess what? We're back at it.
Yeah, that's something I've never done before in my life. And maybe I need to train for that, where you run and take a 20-minute break and then feel it again and say, okay, let's go out for a couple more hours. So that's another thing I learned is maybe go run for an hour or two and take a 20-minute break. So your muscles like, well, you think you're done, and then you tell yourself, we're not done. And I think that would definitely help out. Um, so just talk quickly about my lungs, about how you just like expanded them so much from that effort. I think what I would do different in my training too is I would do at least one, like a hit workout, which I didn't do, where I really push my lungs, like get my heart rate up to at least 165, 170. So a lot, I didn't even explain this yet, but I had my watch on in my heart rate monitor, looking at it the whole time. I mean, not every second, but like as I went through the progression. So I would be, and this was what kind of scary at the beginning was probably from adrenaline, but I can run comfortably at like a 10-minute pace at like a 130 or under heart rate easily. And this sucker jumped up to the 140s, almost 150 before I got to the first hill. And then when I got to the hill, it started to climb up to about 162, 163. And I could actually feel my heart rate in my ear. And that's when I knew I was at max. So that literally happened the entire time. And about maybe the fifth or sixth loop, I started to have it come down a little bit. And I think my body started to adjust to it. So heart rate really wasn't the issue during the race. It was more so just a strain on my lungs. And then we'll get to my legs here. So then when I came in and after the first loop of intermission, um, man, the descent on that first hill is just something unbelievable. It literally, you start off slow descent and then all of a sudden, like towards the end, it's like it's down. And what happened was I think I started turning my feet instead of coming down straight down the hill. I try to, not at the end, but during the middle of the race, like turn them like 25, 40 degrees to kind of not have my toes just slamming in the toe box. But when I did that, what I think I was putting so much strain on my knee on that left side. And I never run like that. Like I've done zigzags to kind of, let me explain this specifically. like on the last hill, you had enough room, but there's rocks. So you got to be very careful of the terrain where you do like a snake, almost like a little zigzag down. But that first hill, you can't do that because there's washout on the one side and you don't have enough room to do a little zigzag pattern. So I was trying a strategy to keep my toes from just slamming in there, and my knees started to feel it when I started to go side to side. So someone asked me, like, what would you do different? I, I would say not as much movement with your feet side to side. And I saw some people doing it and I thought that was a good strategy, but I wouldn't move my feet that much more than like 10 degrees side to side. And if you're coming down the steep hill, because you're changing the weight distribution of where your body and especially your knees are going to have that impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's a recommendation, is don't change because you see someone else doing something. And guess what? Those people who did that, they didn't make it. I'm serious. Now that I recall it, they didn't make it. So just stay with your strategy, even though your feet may be hurting in the front. Don't veer off too much from that pattern. Don't put your feet too much to the side. So let's talk about the end here. So tell me what you witnessed after intermission.
After intermission, it was dark.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, that place takes on a whole new face when it's dark. It's
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine running out there in the dark. It was bad enough when it was light walking it. But yeah, it was you could tell there was, I mean, I think a lot of people started to drop when after the intermission, because like I said, it's there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were, I think that was part of your plan. You wanted to get some miles in the dark because you wanted to go out and experience the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I knew that was, it was what your goal was. So we were ready, had the head torch
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. And yeah, like I said, we had a lot of help too with Tim, like your poles when we were trying to get you when it was time to use the poles, and you're like, put them to whatever height in them. We're trying to,
Oh
me and
yeah.
Cornbread and your mom were trying to figure it out. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, we can't figure it in. Here comes Tim, and it's like, he needs it at this. And that's how tall I am.
Yeah.
Works perfectly.
That did. So after 8 hours, they changed the format. So the previous 2 years, you can use poles after 6 hours. This year, you could use poles after 8 hours. So I didn't have my pole set up for my height. So a couple laps before I came in for the intermission, I'm like, get my pole set up. And then you're like, what's he talking about? Like, get him set up. So Tim came over. We're the same height, Tim Douglas. And thank God Tim set him to right where his height is. That worked perfect. And they did. They worked perfect for what I was doing. So that was an error on my part. I should have probably had my poles set up before the race started. So anyone who's going to do the race, make sure you have your poles set up to your height, unless you have someone that you know is coming over to save you that's the same height as you. That was funny. I'm glad you said that. A positive, you brought up Cornbread. So Cornbread's a good friend of ours. He's been part of our 40 days deliverance program since the beginning last year in July. And man, we've had just a brotherhood with him. And his cousin got hurt in an accident. So he was actually in the hospital in Tennessee. I can't remember which part, but he told me he wasn't going to be able to make it to the race. And he was going to come earlier. So I was, disappointed not at him because I knew the situation. But man, when he came, it was like a lift of my spirit. And I saw him and his wife, and he came in and helped out. And I tell you what, that's the beauty of this race, is the support, right? Everyone has the support of, not everyone though, let me rephrase that. Not everyone has that kind of love and support. So like for me personally, I mean, Scott, my point man, Cornbread coming. My mom was there doing a lot of different tasks. Jeff was helping out with the poles. Tim helped out with the poles, helped out with my knee. And then my cousin was there, and he was my videographer. So he's kind of filming the process of how this kind of unfolded. So we had such great people to help this go. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Scott, if you guys weren't there, there's no way I make it past probably 8 hours. No way. I'm going to be honest. There's no way, because you guys were so good. You guys were so good to me. And I was so blessed to have you guys in my corner And, if I run this next year, I hope that, you guys are able to come with me too, because I want to do a better job. I think we all learned from this process. And it's just good to see how when people come together in fellowship, love, and selflessness, how we can all be better. And that's what the race really is to me, is how can you have people in your crew, in your corner, who truly love and support you, to make you push yourself to the extremes of your limits. So go ahead. Why don't you touch on that, Scott? What did you kind of learn, not only from you, crew, and me, but what you saw around you?
Well, thank you for saying that you wouldn't have made it past 8 hours, but that brings me back, because when you said that, it kind of, to be honest, that's nice to hear, but I was in the same spot in January. I wouldn't have made it through my brother's death if it wouldn't have been for the people in 40 days, you, Chas, Cornbread,
Mhm.
Justin. I mean, just everybody. Everybody in there was so supportive, and so just anything whatever I needed or to talk, or I always had that. So that was well, that's why, one of the reasons I went with you, because it was like, like you said, we have, after we met and the 1st of March or whatever it was when I came down, it was like we were brothers, and I lost my brother, and now I feel like I have one. He's in Ohio,
Right.
unfortunately, but
Yeah, we're not too,
um,
thank God we're not too far, Scott.
yeah, true. But it was amazing. Yeah, the thing was, when I saw Cornbread, because he came in, he got you because you were coming in, and I looked and I was waiting for you, and I saw him, and I was like, I thought I was starting to hallucinate. I was like, he's not supposed to make it, and then
Yeah,
he comes in, like you said, it was a boost for me too, because we were baptized at the 3 of 7 thing together, the
yeah.
3 of 7 50K
50,
last
yeah.
year.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it was nice to see him and to get to spend some time with him.
Yeah, it was a blessing, man. That's the thing, is you just, to be around great people makes the journey of life so much more enjoyable, because the fellowship, and I keep using that word strongly, but it's so true. Like, that's joy. Fellowship is joy, if I would use that word, because you have people in your court who aren't going to give up on you, who are going to love you, support you, even through all the things that you think you don't do well. We have a lot of doubt that we put in our heads, but if you have the right people in your court, man, it just makes the process of life so much more enjoyable. And everyone needs that. So that's a big word of advice from this episode. I hope you get, check yourself, man. Who's in your court? Who's your crew? Who is your crew? And if you don't have a good crew, then go out and find people. I'm serious. And Scott would say this: go join a 40 days deliverance group. Go online and look for people who you're like, man, I would love to hang around them. And you just got to message them. And that's the best thing I would recommend for anybody, is reevaluate who's in your life, and be around better people. So to conclude this episode, I really want to talk about the next morning. So we came back to the race. I had my stuff there, and we were there after the 24-hour mark, and everyone was sleeping. So we pulled in, and Becca came over, and she's like, shh, everyone's sleeping. Like, okay. So I sat down. I talked to, I think, Jeff and Tim. They were right by Justin Hamilton's tent. And I sat down next to him, and I took a picture of him laying on his back. And he woke up, and we were just chatting. He was having his SpaghettiOs. And the guy was like, he like never fazed by the brutality of the hills. Just never fazed. Always in a good mood. So Scott, tell us your experience when we came there that next day.
Yeah, that was like you said, it was kind of strange because everybody was sleeping and we're trying to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started to wind down, and we went over, and you guys were over by Justin's, and like every time he would come in, he would come by and give me a fist bump. And then
Yeah,
like when I got home, he messaged me and said, those fist bumps were, they gave me a lot of energy out there. And I'm like,
it's amazing.
and you're out there running 17, 18 minutes up a mountain, and you're telling me that just by shaking your hand, giving you a fist bump, I was helping you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
this community is like that. They just the small things with Aaron. Aaron's the same way. Aaron, he got it. on Instagram, he sent me a thing. It was like, it was nice to see you, how was your experience? And I'm like, that's another thing, meeting these people's, like Aaron's family, his dad, his kids, his wife, Justin's wife and his kids,
Yeah.
Mike's wife, Mike Boleyn, just everybody. It was like, it's kind of emotional at times, because you see how, and like you were talking about, you need to pick a team, get a team around you. And I hadn't gotten that. I'm 47 years old, and I just got through the 40 days getting to know you, and you introducing me to other people. I built a team now. I can actually say that there's people I could call anytime, and I have. And anything I need, anything, and it's as easy as reaching out to these people, because they're not hard to get a hold of.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not. And speaking about people who are supportive and loving, we want to send a special thank you to Rob from Canada, who purchased hats or t-shirts for us from Salty Britches, from Amy, who the owner is. And it was a joy to meet her. And I'll never forget the first night when we got there, Friday night, when they did the 5K, that we went over to her tent, Salty Britches, and Amy's like, "Are you Scott Craft?" And you're like, "Yeah." "Well, I have a request from Rob from Canada that you can pick out a hat or a t-shirt." And Scott, if I had a video of your face, you were just blown away. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that was it was strange, because I'm talking to Amy, and she's like, "Are you Scott Kraft?" And first off, I'm like, "How do you know who I am?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, I know who you are. I watched the 3 of 7 thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So and then she said, she got a little tablet. She's like, "Rob,
Yeah,
Kraft told me to, whatever you want, just get it, and it's on him." I was like,
it was amazing.
you don't expect somebody that I've never met Rob,
Yeah.
but he's a very close friend. But and you don't expect your friends that you have never met to be reaching out to people that the third party and saying, "Hey, if he wants anything, just give it to him."
Yeah, that set the stage for the race. Like, just that pour out of blessing of just thankfulness that you were there and supporting me and everybody else was just amazing from Rob and everybody else. The last part is, I just want to say thank you to John Coxon and Becca for putting on another great year of this race. I can't even imagine the amount of effort it takes to put this race on, and then the sleep deprivation that both of them have to stay up for 40 hours to make the race continue. And they were wonderful. They're just wonderful people, and I just love them to death. So what do you got on them, Scott?
Yeah, they're fantastic. And John, through his commentary throughout the race,
Yeah.
time's the human construct. It doesn't matter how many people are in the race. I don't care. It's not started yet. He keeps everything just light enough to keep you like kind of laughing. It's like, okay. But yeah, it was so nice of them to open up, their property and let us go out and fellowship for a couple days and get together. And then you guys go out and run a race and test yourselves. It's special, and they're special people, and I'm glad that they're part of my life too now. And it's
I think in summary, I would think that the Mid-State Mile, again, is more than just a race. It's a community of believers, a community of people who just show their love and support for those who are out on the grind. And you get to meet amazing individuals throughout the race and just really witness how true love is to be shown. And you see that through the crew. So to everyone out there who listens to this and who was part of the race, just thank your crew again and again, and tell them how much they did for you to keep you going. So Scott, I just truly appreciate you, brother, for everything you did for me during that weekend. I can't wait for the new adventures that we will do together, the 40 days program coming up in a couple of weeks, and just literally new experiences for both of us to sharpen each other's blade to become better people.
Definitely.
So everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you, Scott Kraft. Thank you to, again, everyone who had an impact on me for racing, for the prep, my running group, PJ, just everyone who has helped me throughout this process. So thank you, everyone. God bless. And that is the end of the John Cardina classroom.